Let's go back to the Saturday games. We'll start with Texans and the Chiefs here. Chiefs win this one 27-19. Top five graded players for Kansas City here in this game. Defensive tackle Chris Jones at the very top of the list, as he often is, with an 87.7. Edge rusher George Karlaftis an 86.3. Safety Justin Reed an 84.3. Wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins a 78.4. Center Creed Humphrey a 77.5. Patrick Mahomes in this game, excellent, 90.2 overall grade there for Mahomes. For Houston, Tank Dell was the top graded player on this game, and obviously heartbreaking, the injury that happened to him. And you just hope that everything is going to be okay with that knee injury and that he will be able to come back better than ever. But he graded before he left a 92.1, including catching that touchdown there. Cornerback Kamari Lassiter next on the list with a 78.2. Edge rusher Nico Autry with a 77.6. Guard Titus Howard a 73.6. Defensive tackle Mario Edwards with a 70.0. And then quarterback C.J. Stroud in this game with an 83.9. What was your stat that told the story here for this one, Dalton?
Yeah, so I think it's fitting that the Chiefs' top two pass rushers were their two highest graded players outside of Mahomes in this game, because in the second half, my stat is second half 68.8% pressure rate on C.J. Stroud. Their pass rush just took this game over late. Stroud under pressure in the second half, 3 for 9, 57 yards. They got 2 sacks on him, 62.8 passing grade. It was just too much, right? And they got pressure all day, but it really turned up in the second half, and he didn't quite handle it as well. We've talked about play to play, drive to drive, game to game. Play under pressure can be volatile, and that was the case in this game. I think the fact that the Chiefs pass rush, I think obviously Jones, because Chris Jones is going to be the Texans' biggest problem anyway, right? In this game, or if they're going to play the Chiefs in the playoffs, I don't know that they have an interior answer for that. Actually, I don't think they have one at all. But the fact that George Karlaftis, and he's actually my most impressive guy, I'll just skip to that, because the fact that he gives them a second a really good pass rusher in this game, which sometimes kind of wavers. We've seen games before where Chris Jones has 8 to 10 pressures and nobody else has more than 2. The fact that Karlaftis gave him 7 pressures, hit C.J. Stroud 4 times, had over a 20% pass rush win rate, those two guys really took over in the second half of the game. And even a quarterback as good as C.J. Stroud, when he's pressured on 11 out of 16 dropbacks, his life gets a lot harder, especially after you mentioned the Tank Dell injury there, and he's running out of weapons. It's really just C.J. Stroud and Nico Collins in the passing game at this point. I think the fact that Jones and Karlaftis got so much pressure was the story of the second half of this game, which turned into the story of the entire game, and I was really impressed with Karlaftis. I thought it was the best that he had looked all season.
Yeah, no, it was a good combination there, and obviously offensive line, we've talked about that as a woe for this Texans team, and the Chiefs were unfortunately a really good front to take advantage of a weakness there for the Houston Texans. For me, the stat that told the story was a quick game of the Chiefs passing game. I know that they showed this on the broadcast, but I was certainly noticing this as the game was going on, and the numbers spoke to it after the game was over. Mahomes passes on throws that were a time to throw less than 2.5 seconds. He had an 85.3 passing grade. 26 of his 46 attempts came with less than 2.5 seconds with the ball coming out of his hand. He had one big time throw. He had a 76.9 adjusted completion percentage and just an average depth of target of 4.3. So anytime you're getting the ball to your hands that quickly, well, the wide receivers don't have a lot of time to get down the field. So you figure that the average depth of target is going to be lower, but he was so quick, he was so decisive, and they were so confident still to execute a quick game passing attack here against the Houston Texans. And I wonder if it's because, hey, you look at those two corners and how much they have really succeeded. You look at how well Kalen Bullock has been playing as a ball hawk there at the safety level, and you say to yourself, all right, well, we have watched Derek Stingley, and we have watched Kamari Lassiter, we have watched Kalen Bullock be these players who are making big-time forced incompletions and even takeaways when we are passing it deep down the field. So the way that we are going to mitigate that, well, we're not going to give them those chances. We're going to hit them underneath. And obviously that kind of behooves the Chiefs anyways with their personnel that they have this season and just the flow of their passing attack and what seems to be working really well for them. And it just felt like in this game, they leaned into that more than we have even seen through other games this year. So the quick game of Patrick Mahomes, how he recognizes things pre-snap, knowing exactly where to go with the ball, and then setting that up, marrying that up with play calling to get that kind of an advantage. You saw that, and you saw a really good offensive output there for you, or for the for the Chiefs because of it. Most impressive and most disappointing. Who you got here?
I got Karlaftis as my most impressive as a pass rusher, aside from Chris Jones on that side. And then most disappointing, I think part of it does kind of go along with what you just mentioned about the Chiefs play calling in the passing game. Because, look, if your offensive line can't protect you, and we know they've been shuffling tackles, they got Joe Thuney at left tackle now, they got a new left guard in, you got a rotation going at right tackle, we had Wanya Morris, I believe, finished the game yesterday. For me, Will Anderson had to do a little bit more. And I know, again, the quick game was mitigating the pass rush, but 53.5 pass rush grade, 58.1 run defense grade, only won 4 of his 33 pass rush reps. If the Texans are going to have any chance in the postseason, if these two teams meet again, they need Anderson and Hunter to play at an elite level. Hunter was solid. Anderson didn't give him a whole lot. Again, the quick game does mitigate that because, something I've said a lot lately for not just the Chiefs, but a lot of teams with bad offensive lines. If your line can't protect you, then you protect yourself, right? And I think Mahomes did a great job of it, but they're going to need more from Will Anderson to win games like this.
No, it's a great point, and one I could have or should have made really when we were talking about the quick game is, when you're struggling at offensive tackle and you're going up against 2 really good edge rushers. I mean, this was just an excellent game plan for the Kansas City Chiefs, and we'll see if they continue to do something like this and really emphasize that quick game on more than 50% of their passes. See if that's something that we could see more of them moving forward, or was this sort of just a, hey, we know what the Texans really want to do when it comes to the secondary, but also the pass rushers, like you mentioned. This is how we're going to mitigate it, and I'm curious. Because I thought it was a brilliant chess match strategy there for the offensive decision makers and play designers there for the Kansas City Chiefs. Most impressive for me is Chris Jones. You talked about it was okay. It was George Karlaftis or Chris Jones. You went with Karlaftis. I'll go with Chris Jones here. 8 pressures, 26.1 pass rush win percentage. He just remains one of the most versatile and dominant defensive linemen that we have in the NFL. Most disappointing, I'll go with Kendrick Green. 10.9 pass blocking grade, 4 pressures allowed, 10.3 pressure percentage. So a little bit of here's a strength that I'm praising, but there's a reason why. It's because it's a most disappointing. And again, we go to the Texans offensive line, and it's something that has been a storyline for them the entire season. And I feel like they had a couple of weak links this week as well. Again, it's not really a great matchup because it's your weakness going up against one of their strongest strengths. But the offensive side of the football, no Stephon Diggs, no Tank Dell now. Man, I don't know if you saw this, but I looked at the over-under for Nico Collins for their game coming up, and 90.5 is the over-under. That's a lot of yards for an over-under for a wide receiver, but it's hard not to think that Nico Collins is going to hit that simply because the Texans need him to if they're going to keep winning football games and get on a hot streak before they get into the playoffs. So
thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe the video. And if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can get one to see all the premium stats that we talked about here on the show, plus the expert betting and fantasy advice over at subscribe.pff.com. The description is also right below. So if you are not a PFF Plus subscriber, you can become one today.